On this day, Ted Van Naal's family and friends honored his outstanding life with music, poetry, fellowship, and shared memories.
Who was Theodore William Van Naal? He was a loving son who managed my parents in their declining years. He moved in with my father and cared for him. He managed my mother's home and care with the dedication of pure love. And because I asked him, he cared for Jean, the stepfather.
Came to embrace our Canadian ties. Maybe it's because he grew up in Brooklyn at our father's bakery, running in and out with cookies for his pals. Or maybe it was because they recognized his entrepreneurial skills with his bicycle paper route in Yonkers. They definitely saw him, their brilliant, cerebral, curious, gentle son. Oh gosh. I mean, what kid has 100% average in high school in the 1950s? Did you know he tooled me around Yonkers in his basket on his bicycle? Yeah, I don't remember. What I do remember is a brother who wrestled with me on the living room floor. He was Brutus, I was Popeye. One winter, we built the Parthenon in our backyard with buckets of snow. He brought me to my first art museum, the Guggenheim in New York City, where I fell in love with abstract painting, especially Juan Miró. And years later, we went together to Miró Museum in Spain. I was with him in the early days of his computer company and watched guys wire the motherboard with transistors. They looked like candy. We skateboarded together on one board through Boston Zoo. Yeah, we walked the Freedom Trail in Boston with the German ants every time someone came. He lived in the North End on Henchman Street, and after spiraling up 4 flights of stairs, I could always look forward to a sink full of dirty dishes that he saved for me. We shared a passion for Star Trek and science fiction that annoyed or bored some. Of course, he was there for all the milestones, to high school graduation, college graduation, my first kiss, my wedding, my son's first birthday, and he brought newborn Kelly and I home from the hospital. Ted and I put a promise down on my first house. I was actually on the way from Newburyport back to New York, and they talked to the realtor, and I had a house. Well, Summers, Ted, Joanna, my husband Fletcher, and I, we hung out together. We had such fun. I met many interesting people through my brother and his wife Joanna, such as beekeepers, maple syrup farmers, politicians, doctors, artists, realtors, and finance guys. But more importantly, I met my husband, who is his tenant and recipient of his friendship. Through him, I was able to visit a former neighbor who moved to San Francisco, Alan Wagner, where my father and I stayed for 2 weeks after a month and a half in Asia. I met Walter Guinan, are you here, Walter? In Boston, and he later moved to Newburyport. Does he remember the two of them balancing on pilings on the Charles River? I do. He brought me to Vermont to my first ever polo match because the family member was in the game. But the best gift, the very best gift, was his wife Joanna and Laura. They were a welcome addition to our family. Summers, Ted, Joanna, Fletcher, Marion, Laura, and I. We had a lot of fun. Later, my children, Teddy and Kelly, him. He opened my mind to anthropology at age 10, and he could talk quantum physics or string theory, right, Link?
I accept the Ice Bucket Challenge, and I nominate Carol Van Allen.
I think what he really enjoyed was shaping young minds.
Kelly Collins. There we go!
Ted helped mold Laura Hammond. He influenced my daughter. He shared his wealth of knowledge of politics, especially financial campaign management, with my son. His other nephew, Peter, can tell you how Ted encouraged him as well. He had long talks on the phone with people, listening and sharing his knowledge and experience. I think you know how he cared for his wife, because you all are here, and his community and the world he lived in. Know that when others asked me who my hero was, it was him. Despite all you hear or have heard, he was a natural introvert. He preferred garden.
I'm trying to balance the colors, and so I'm planting some purples over there. And
Walks on trails on the beach, listening to jazz as we have here today, sitting on the porch watching the birds at the feeder and reading. His curious side had him exploring the world, Point Barrow, Alaska, the volcanoes in Hawaii, backpacking the Grand Canyon with 4 buddies, solo hikes of Mount Washington, Sweden, Canada, Germany, Spain, Portugal, kicking back in France, projects in Kenya. And meeting up with family in England and Ethiopia. He enjoyed scotch in the winter and beer in the summer. He played hearts and spades with us on our vacation. He was an artist with exquisite detail that downplayed his talent. Ted did a lot of thinking. He truly loved Joanna and cared for her passions, interests, security. They were extremely comfortable with each other. So, when it came time for me to retire from my work in New York as a nurse, they had a condo in Florida. And through their help, in 1 week, I found a condominium across the street from them, so I could walk across the street when they came down in the wintertime and spend time, more than just 2 weeks in the summer. Because I used to live in New York, and he was living in Massachusetts. So before I have a seat, I need to share one more thing. Ted had songs. And in fact, he had songs I didn't even know about. Like, I didn't know that he loved the sound of music. And I didn't know that he loved My Fair Lady. And those are my 2 favorite musicals. But in the 1960s, we went to Europe, my whole entire family. And I was really puzzled because he was leaving us. We weren't going to go on the trip with him. But he had a plan to go to Sweden and be with his MIT professor. And so in the parking lot, he sings this song to me. And if you know this song, it's by the Seekers, please join me. Because right now my voice is scratchy and, you know. It's called The Promised Land. There's a new world somewhere they call the Promised Land. And I'll be there someday if you will hold my hand. I need you stand beside me, no matter what I do, for I know I'll never find another you. There's always someone for each of us, they say, and you'll be my someone forever and a day. I could search the whole world over until my life is through, but I know I'll never find another you.
So I'll be looking for you, Ted, in the promised land.
If there was one thing that I could change on my brother, it would be those damn bushy eyebrows.